Hello. Today I'm going to tell you about a dog that I cannot tell you why I got interested in them because they're not very common. In fact, I've only seen one or two in Seattle, and Seattle's a really big dog town. And the reason for that is that although they can be kept as pets, they're really bred primarily as a really serious working dog. And the other reason why I'm so fascinated by this dog is because the history of it is just so fascinating. What they did to create this dog is just pretty mind-boggling. I'm talking about the Dogo Argentino, or some people call it the Argentinian Mastiff. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is sort of the inception of this dog, which was the foundation of it was a dog that is extinct now. It's called the Old Cordoba Fighting Dog. It's sort of a medium-sized dog, but it was a real son of a bitch dog. It was the most intense fighting dog of all time. It was so aggressive that it would rather fight its breeding partner than to breed with them. And so they eventually couldn't just get enough puppies to keep the breed going. Very, very aggressive. Well, there were a couple of brothers in Argentina, Antonio Norez Martinez and his brother Agustin Norez Martinez. And they were teenagers, and they were fascinated by cougars and wild boars, and they wanted to create hunting dogs that could take out these huge big game animals in Argentina. And so they decided they would start out with this old Cordoba fighting dog, and they got probably about 10 bitches of this breed, and they started breeding other dogs in with them. I really would not want to be one of these other dogs facing the prospect of breeding with one of these dogs, but that was not my problem. What I'm going to tell you in this speech is the different breeds that he went through and why he used them to create this dog. And it took over 25 years of breeding to create this very specialized dog. The first was that old Cordoba fighting dog. At one time he had up to 30 bitches that he was breeding with. Then he bred in 10 different other breeds, and starting with the pointer. And the reason for that is the old Cordoba fighting dog didn't have a good nose at all. And you need to be able to smell the game, and pointers have really, really good noses. The next was the Great Dane. And he bred that in because of the size. And you're all familiar with Great Danes, and they're very powerful hunting dogs too. He then bred in the Bull Terrier. Because they are serious fighting dogs. Next, he mixed in the Bulldog, the English Bulldog. And part of that is because they have this really big chest that you can use for helping it with its struggles with the animals. The next breed that he bred in was the Irish Wolfhound. And they're probably one of the greatest natural hunters of all the breeds of dogs, and they were used to hunt wolves back in the old days when there were still wolves up in the north of the UK. The next breed was the French Mastiff. And there are a lot of Mastiffs that were used in the foundation of this animal. And that's one of the reasons why it's called the Argentinian Mastiff. The next breed that he bred in was the Great Pyrenees. And the reason for this was really interesting because he wanted that white coat. They have beautiful white coats. The reason for using a white-coated animal was because when he was actually, they were engaged with whatever prey they were working on, you could really tell the difference between the dog and the prey. You wouldn't get the brown furs mixed up. And so that was a help with that. The ninth breed that he bred in was the Spanish Mastiff. And the reason for that is they were just incredibly powerful dogs. And that's one of the things he really wanted from this. And the last breed that he bred in was the most interesting. He had this just fiendishly powerful fighting dog that could take out just about any prey. But he wanted to have an animal that he could also have in the house. And boxers are really good family dogs. And they're very good with children. And that's one of the things that's remarkable about these Dogo Argentinos is that although you wouldn't say that they were necessarily the most ideal pet, they certainly can be kept in a house and they're safe around children. And that's otherwise a lot of people would not bother with this breed. The dogs themselves are about 27 inches tall. They're really big. One of the interesting things about them is that they've got this very wide mouth with widely spaced teeth. And the reason for this is that they are hunting primarily these big boar. And these are huge animals. And they have to hold them down and be able to breathe. The reason for this is that they do not kill the animals. They just wrestle them to the ground and they go out in groups of 3, and they're wearing Kevlar, and they wrestle primarily it's boars what they're used for nowadays, and they hold them down to the ground, and the hunter will go in there with a knife and just stab it straight into the heart, and it will be instant death and very humane for the pig. And they can go out there and they can hunt in 3s like that and take down 8 or 9 different boar a day. They're just really prolific animals. One of the interesting things about this is, you might ask is, well, why is boar hunting so important? Well, boars were introduced as a hunting animal in the 20th century, but they became feral and they are highly destructive, and there are no known predators for them, and they are very, very destructive. Just like a decade ago, they were doing $52 million worth of damage a year to crops. So this is one of the reasons why. And Texas is one of the big places where they do boar hunting with Dogo Argentinos, and they take out a lot of them. They're, as I said, they're can be used as a pet. Some people really like them, but you have to be a real alpha personality type to work with them. And they're unusual dogs. They're sort of like cats in the sense that they're not as needy as a lot of dogs, and they're very independent around the house. And you can pet them, and then they'll go to their corner, and then they don't feel the need to be constantly engaged with, like a lot of dogs are. They're really remarkable animals. I think they're very beautiful, and the history of them, and one of the things that's interesting is, we as humans do not do selective breeding on ourselves. We probably should. But it is amazing to me what can be done with animals if you selectively breed, and the Dogo Argentino is a prime example of how selective breeding can hone an animal to be absolutely perfect for the job that it is meant to do. Thank you very much.